I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
For those who came here expecting Ajahn Jeff, I apologize. You got me. Not too many understand that joke other than Travis, probably. We had Ajahn Jeff here the other night, and he's only one of the greatest Buddhist teachers alive today. And I mean that very seriously. He's one of the major translators of the Pali Canon. He's been a monk, 40 plus years, runs Metaphors Monastery. And he comes down here, it's been a couple times the last few years, to teach. And so we had, probably 150 people, and people lined up outside and out the doors to see him the other night. So when I gave the intro, Travis usually leads the Thursday night 7 o'clock class. And so most people knew that Ajahn Jeff or Thanissaro Bhikkhu would be here. But some people maybe just thought they were coming for Dharma Bum Basics with Travis. So when I introduced Ajahn, I apologized to anyone who thought they were coming for Travis and had to sit with the greatest Buddhist teacher in the world, or one of. And I tell that story, other than to me, I think it was funny, but also to just remind us that there is the practice of the Buddhist teachings, what he taught. And then there's like millions of people in the world who express their interpretation of the Buddhist teachings. And everybody who expresses their interpretation of the Buddhist teachings is only doing their best as unenlightened folks to share the Dharma. And what we see very often in meditation in Buddhist circles and kind of this day and in, the Western sense is people who get attached to the teacher, the guru, the master, the one that they think has all the answers, and they don't. They're human. They suffer and struggle through life just like you do. They have maybe just studied and practiced and shared the teachings for a long time or a short period of time. But either way, they're just human. And I think one of the most beautiful pieces of this, somebody asked a question, without going into detail, something about, someone else gonna save you from yourself. And he laughed and he said, basically, no, you're on your own. And when I think about these two things together, our faith in like this grand teacher and the ultimate teachings, read them, look at them, study them. What did the Buddha actually teach? What's been written down? What did he say? And try it. The mistake I see more often than not is people thinking that the person sitting up here, whether it's here or any place you go to, has the answers for you. They don't. You have the answers. But often we're not willing to look at the place that is the source of all of our pain and all of our suffering and all of our struggles, which is yourself. So once we stop seeking answers from anything or anyone outside ourselves, and we use the knowledge that we gain from the people who sit and lead you, because they do have probably some wisdom, but they also have ignorance. So don't be afraid to put that responsibility back on your shoulders that says, basically, if you're suffering, you got to deal with it. And if you want to find peace and happiness in your life, then you have to put peace and happiness into your life. Nobody else is going to do that for you. Now, if you're willing to make effort and changes to allow that to occur, then that's wonderful. If you're not, and you keep waiting for somebody else to come in and push the magic button and make everything better, then, that's not wonderful. So just keep that in mind as you go on your kind of Buddhist journey, whether you're brand new or, been at this for a long time. You wake up with yourself every day, you go to sleep with yourself every day, and your mind is the one that has to face yourself every day. So with that, we'll start a meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. All right, you're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. All right, don't judge your practice. Meaning, don't ask yourself, is this working? Is this not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You're going to hear sounds. Phones ring. People cough. People move. This is life. All right, life is filled with chaos. The practice of meditation is not escaping from it, but learning to be quiet and still within it. You won't think nothing. All right, your mind won't go blank. Please keep breathing. It'll make the practice much easier. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushions, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever is comfortable. If you're on the benches or chairs, also just trying to sit up straight. Being mindful of posture, though, not being lazy. I'll guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds like that. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Turn attention, focus to the breath. Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, it's quiet, still, calm, or a busy mind, racing mind. Whatever you're sitting with at this moment has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit, hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around you or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than anyone in this room, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for every one of us in this room, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every day. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you feel now is quite different from how you feel the rest of your days. So all we're working on is closing the gap to the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun, but it's free. Meditation, Buddhist practice, it's sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter, every moment of your life. And that's it. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, which is where we spend so much of our time, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. When we work on our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it's a practice. You know, to me, one of the most beautiful things about engaging with and being around and learning from, even though I'm not a regular who goes up to metaphorist, like some people here are, but when you engage with Ajahn Jeff, Thanissaro Bhikkhu, it's fascinating because he cares so much about everyone, everything. His entire life is devoted to helping others figure out how to end suffering, while he also works on figuring out how to end his own suffering. He's devoted his entire life to that for the last 40 plus years, maybe longer, I don't know exactly. When you talk to him, and if you don't know him, you might think, this guy doesn't even care about what I'm saying. He seems emotionless to some extent. Although he's quite funny. He was especially funny the other night. But if you're not used to being around someone who practices that intently, my interpretation and what that means to me is they're just not swayed by every single little thing you say. They're not looking to give you laughter. They're not looking to give you, oh, I'm so sorry. They're not looking to provide anything other than being present with you, with whatever is happening. And it's a really beautiful practice. Now, when we reflect that back on our own lives and little things happen to us or people say things to us and we're like, oh, yay, so excited. We're like, oh, no, that sucks. We're just like this roller coaster ride of emotions. And I can't speak for him. I don't know what it's like to be him. This is only my unenlightened perception, is that he's just so present with what's happening that he's not so swayed by every little thing you say or do. Now think about how we are when we're talking to people, when we're on the phone, when people are talking to you about others. Has anyone ever said something to you about someone that you know, and maybe you don't like them also, and then there's just this banter back and forth, the practice of right speech, no gossip, no slander. saying things that are necessary. When you engage with someone who actually doesn't gossip, who doesn't slander, and only says things that are necessary, it's fascinating. It's almost like you don't know how to communicate with them. Again, that's my personal experience when I first encountered him. It's really beautiful. And, to be around people who practice at that level and it's only like an hour north of here. You can go anytime, Valley Center. But to wrap that up for me, when I see someone like that, it's just a reflection and a reminder back to explore our own behavior. Because like I said, his life is dedicated to figuring out how to end suffering and sharing that with others. And he wouldn't do what he does if he didn't care tremendously. But often we see and judge and critique others who don't respond the way we want, and we might think that that means they don't care. And not always the case. So I'll stop there and just open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind that I can address. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I missed that. Is that online now?
It is. So we have, for those who don't know, we've got everything now on YouTube, Dharma Bum Temple, just YouTube, Dharma Bum Temple, and the whole talk is up there. Yeah.
In the 12-step program, the basic tenets, from what I understand, are first you admitted you're powerless over whatever your thing is.
Yeah.
Second, you came to believe that a power greater than yourself could restore you to sanity. Quote. And then the third one is willing to turn it over to this power. Yet when you first started talking, it sounded like you're on your own here. Nothing and no one is going to help you. Are those two in conflict with each other?
I would first refer to the YouTube talk that Ajahn Jeff gave here 2 nights ago, because somebody asked that exact question. He phrased it a little bit differently, but in essence, he asked that exact question, and that was Ajahn response. Or Ajahn response was to that. So I'll share briefly what I think about it, which again won't be, I think, nearly as eloquent and beautiful as Ajahn said it. But what he talked about was, and he was even talking about, the ego, the superego, and the Freudian stuff. And he talked about how there's always this conflict. And someone was asking about, when you to turn over to a higher power. In Buddhism, there is no higher power, and you are on your own, right? Nobody's going to come in and save you. You're stuck, right? But when you look at, in reference to people who are in recovery and the practice of turning it over to a higher power, what he talked about is this idea that there are different kind of egos within us, different personalities, different selves, right? There's the happy self there, and I'm making this stuff up on my own. I'm not attempting to paraphrase or follow what Ajahn said, but there's the happy self, there's the sad self, there's the kind self, there's the greedy self, right? There's the angry self, there's the compassionate self. And so to give over to a higher power is to recognize that there's a self in you that would want to drink or use or abuse or whatever. In case any of you have habits anyone here have habits that might be unhealthy. So it's not just about addiction, just for I don't want, anytime questions come up around addiction, because we do have a large recovery community here, it's for everybody. I don't want to narrow it into just the addiction part of it. Just think of any bad habits you might have, right? There's something in you that's wrestling with, this is going to be harmful to myself. There's another side of you, another self, ego, that says, this is going to give me pleasure right now, right? And then there's another part of you that wrestles with which way to go. And what he talked about very specifically was turning it over to that part that isn't saying, yes, I should use, yes, I should drink. Because if you are sitting there, and again, I'm coming from the Buddhist lens, someone not in recovery, someone who's never had a faith or belief in Jesus or anybody coming to save me. If I'm sitting here waiting for somebody to save me, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Because nobody's coming to save me. Nobody's going to fix me. Nobody's taking away any anger or greed that I have. Nobody's taking away my craving and my desire, my addiction. The only person who's going to do that is the self in me that says that will cause harm. Right? So I don't see conflict. I see different approaches. And I see for those who are in recovery and they do turn their faith over to higher power, God, Jesus, whatever it might be, then God bless you. Because if it's keeping you clean and sober and not doing things that are harmful, then continue to do that. Does that make sense? It's just for those who struggle with that, right? If that's the only way, if the only way to overcome your unhealthy cravings and unhealthy desires, if the only way is to turn it over to higher power such as God and you don't believe in God, well, then what are you going to do?
It's not necessarily God, the higher power, and that's made very
Right.
Sometimes a lot of people come into the program, hear the word God, and never come back. So
Well, that's
try to
my
make it
point.
clear, it's not God, it's not what you,
Right?
whatever you
Yes.
call it.
But to some, it is God. That's my point. My point is that there are some people who believe that is who you should turn it over to. And if that is the case, to echo what you said, and you think that that's the only way, and you don't have that belief, then you're in trouble. So to recognize that, yes, there are multiple things that you can turn it over to. And from the Buddhist lens, what I got from what Ajahn said is turn it over to the self part of you that knows what you're doing is harmful. And again, not just with addiction to any sort of drug, alcohol, whatever it might be, but to conversations. You're going to have conversations with people today. Anyone think you're going to have an opportunity to be nice or mean to somebody today? Right? Some of us have an addiction to being mean to people. Some of us have an addiction to being angry towards others. Some of us have an addiction to making sure we, go here or go there or do this or do that. And in all of those moments of choice, because that's really what it is, it's a moment of choice. We are going to have choices all day long to walk this way or walk that way. And you will wrestle with that. So continue to feed the side of you that says, this is the healthy choice, this is the compassionate choice. And very specifically, at the core of Buddhist teachings, he says we suffer because of greed, anger, and ignorance. And we overcome greed with generosity, we overcome anger with compassion, we overcome ignorance with wisdom. So make the choices that are based in generosity, compassion, and wisdom. That takes you out of the ego that is the ego that causes so much suffering. And again, he talked very beautifully about this idea in Buddhism that often people think that you're supposed to destroy the ego or that the ego is going to be, go away. It's not. He talked about, which is the Buddhist teachings, healthy desires, healthy cravings, the healthy side of the ego, becoming friends with your ego. If you didn't have a desire to suffer less, nobody would be here right now. Right? You didn't come for the free food. Right? We're here because we want to suffer less. That's a desire. That's a craving. That's your ego. Beautiful. Yeah. Good question. Other questions? Yeah.
So, it's not a question, but something I want to share when you mentioned about the beginning about the feeling arise and go down up and down.
Mm-hmm.
So way back 4 years ago, I made a friend, not my close friends, and I'm going to get married. And then she's like, "Oh, you get married?" I said, "Yes, I'm getting married." I'm just because I'm practicing. Yes, I am getting married. And she was like, "Are you happy?" I said, "Yes, I am."
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not like full of joy. I'm not showing my feeling. I'm like,
Right.
"Yes, I am." You have a doubt? And she's kind of me deeply. I'm like, "No, I don't have a doubt. I'm married. I'm happy, but I don't want to just like show you my feeling." And she just keep asking me a question like, "Are you really sure about this person?" "Yes, I am."
Right.
So I just want to share because sometimes when you when you are not going with the feeling, they doubt you. Like
Yeah,
they,
yeah.
they question you. That's it.
Yeah, it's a common, I think, unfortunately, practice that we often are wanting others to give the response that we're looking for. And if they don't give the response that we're looking for, then we're not okay with that. That's their response. That's your response. We all embrace life differently. And it's not our place to make sure everybody feels okay with our responses. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of people spend their time doing. And that's what causes the struggle. Yeah. Go ahead, Evan, go ahead.
I'm still struggling with what you said, that, how you react. I'm just thinking that, suppose you saw something upsetting and you want to develop the thought of compassion. Unless you get upset at that, would it be indifference? I mean, very soon you could fall into indifference.
No. I'm going to stop you right there. We don't even continue, right? Your question is basically around, what you just said, unless I get upset, I'm going to be indifferent. I have learned through this practice, I see so many things every single day that are sad, that are disgusting, that I really want to stop. I don't get angry at them.
No, not at that.
I mean at the situation. I don't get angry at the situation. I don't get upset about the situation. Through the cultivation of compassion, you understand this is causing harm. And coming from a place of love and compassion, you recognize you don't want to see others harmed. So you do what you can. Coming from a place of love and compassion, that's not indifferent. But if I get angry at it, what am I going to bring into that situation? Anger. It's not about the view that what you're really getting at, which is a common question, is often people think that, well, anger is what's driving me. No, anger is what's killing you. Love is what should drive you. Compassion is what should drive you. Forgiveness for the people who are causing pain. And then engaging in that with an open mind and an open heart. Just like we would want others to engage with us when we cause pain. So I understand that it's not a place that you're at, right? That you might see something that you dislike and anger arises. And then you feel, well, there's anger there, so I'm going to try to fix it. Well, the same thing could happen. And if you view that the person or people bringing whatever is occurring in that moment, if you have compassion for them, then you might have a better way of dealing with it. Anger is not going to do you or them any good. It's just going to cause more pain and more anger. Go ahead, yeah. Sure, yeah.
I was just gonna say that I read somewhere that anger should be used as an indicator only, that is something that is important to you and that you might want to change, but you shouldn't act out of it or react out of it, just use it as an indicator.
Yeah, it's a great way and yeah, so I understand that when you see something that causes anger, it's not a simple thing to just have that anger no longer be there.
Right. It's very difficult.
It's very difficult. But I think what Marissa's saying is really a beautiful way to look at it, that it's an indicator. So one of my favorite stories is, any of you here heard me tell the story about getting hit in the head with a big gulp? A couple of you. All right. So this was probably 10 years ago, 11, 12 years ago, somewhere around there. And I was driving. And it's been 2007, 12 years ago. And I had just come back from kind of monastery life and, was changing everything about my life, and some abruptly, some slowly. And so before my monastery life and, liking money and liking convertible cars.
Yeah.
I had money and I had convertible cars. And so I got rid of almost everything I had and then went to Taiwan, but I had kept my convertible Mustang because I wasn't quite over that attachment yet. That's why I was picking on Evan. It's like, dude, either get the Lamborghini or don't, but don't be stuck with it for 10 years. The choice, either do it or don't, but go. That's another story. So I come back from Taiwan and I've got my Mustang and tops down, and I'm driving, I'm coming off the freeway. And all of a sudden, 2 lanes merge into one, right? And I got in front of the car, and I just got blindsided out of nowhere. Something hit me. And this all happened very fast, even quicker than what it takes for me to tell the story. So what had happened was it was a car of 3 or 4 kids, teenagers, maybe 16, 18 years old. And they had taken a 44-ounce Big Gulp of Hawaiian Punch, and they had thrown it at me. Now, tops down, windows down, my arms like right here, and the cup hit like directly on the windowsill thing. The top, because of the impact, opened up, and I got drenched in Hawaiian Punch. That's how I know it was Hawaiian Punch. Right? And white car, white leather, I had a white shirt on, And my immediate reaction, like first reaction.
Cheers them down.
No, that was your immediate reaction. Let me finish the story. My first reaction was laughter. My immediate reaction was laughter. Because I was like, oh my God, that was a perfect shot. I would have been the 16-year-old kid who would have done that. And I would have been, if it's too high, it goes over my head. If it's too low, it hits the side of the car, doesn't have the impact. But it was the perfect shot. And I laughed at what a perfect shot it was, right? And then I immediately, after that, again, this all happened very fast, my next thought was sadness. I was like, man, how sad is it that we've created a life for ourselves and a world for ourselves where just because I got in front of them, they felt they needed to do something like that. How sad is that? And I continued my next few minutes, 3-5 minutes drive, got back down to Temple, got out, and was telling the story. And covered in Hawaiian Punch, and it wasn't until shortly thereafter that I realized the thought of anger never arose, not once. Now, back up 5 years, and that thing happened. I would have chased them down. I would have taken the baseball bat that was in my trunk, and it would have been a completely different situation. Right? You know me well enough. I'm not one who typically tells stories and says like, oh, I've figured anything out. But what I can tell you is that for a kid who grew up filled with anger and hatred and rage towards anything and anyone for stupid reasons, right? Something like that years ago, I would have done a lot of destruction. And through the practice of Buddhism, the anger was gone. I didn't wake up every day and think, I hope I get rid of my anger today. I didn't wake up every day and think, I hope sadness or depression goes away. I didn't wake up every day and think, I hope there's no more anxiety or stress. I woke up every day and dedicated myself to looking at what the Buddha taught and to practicing it. And some days better than others. And eventually something like that happened. There was no anger. Does that mean what they did was right or good? No. It created sadness. That they're so just punk kids. You know who else was that punk kid? Myself. So another level to this is when we see things, not karma. I'll get back to that. That's not karma. I mean, it is karma, but not the way you probably meant it. It's not payback. It's not what I deserved. I'll come back to that. Right? But if you recognize that in time, this stuff works. But if you sit there with the same mind that you have now, you're going to suffer a lot, just like I did. So it works. Or at least that part worked for me. You know?
Thank you.
Yeah. Only took me 7 years, so.
It could take me 70 years.
70 years, that's all right. But there's hope. There's hope, right? You ever seen the movie Dumb and Dumber? Saying there's a chance, right? Let me come back to the karma comment, and I'll kind of wrap up with this thought, because it's really critical to have this. I just heard it from over here. I don't know who said it. It doesn't even matter. But the comment was, that's karma. Karma is the most misunderstood word in Buddhist teachings. Karma literally means action. Karma is not what you deserve. Karma is not what you get. Karma is not what happens to you in most regards. Karma is what you give. The Buddha taught we generate karma 3 ways: body, speech, mind. Everything we think, everything we say, and everything we do is our karma. So karma is what we give to the world. It's not what comes back to us. We make the mistake and think that if good things happen, that's our karma. If bad things happen, that's our karma. If I do good, then I'm going to get good. If I do bad, then I'm going to get bad. Karma is what we give. Very different from how most people think karma works. Karma is the law of cause and effect. And the reason I said in some regards, yes, that was my karma. That was my karma because I was driving. I was in the car. I got off right where they got off. Right? So my karma put me there. But I could have been a nice person my entire life, and maybe my karma still put me there. Your karma has you here right now. We all sit here today and we think, well, we're all sitting together, we're learning about meditation, we're learning about Buddhist practice, and so our karma has us here right now, and that's okay. And we're okay with that. But if something tragic, if something terrible, if something disastrous happened right now, and someone says this is your karma, we would struggle with that. Karma is not tied to the emotional reaction or response. Karma is the law of cause and effect. Things happen. This is karma. And so at the end of every meditation, when I say with the body still, the speech quiet, the mind beginning to settle, that is the practice, my understanding of the Buddhist teachings on the practice of karma. Still the body, still the speech, still the mind. That's why going back to Ajahn Jeff, dialogue with him is his words are very selective, very careful. His movement, monks, nuns, they move, speak, everything very slow. So, be mindful of your karma, because your entire life you're like the cue ball on a pool table. And every ball that you hit has an impact. Every person, every place, everything that you encounter, you impact that situation with your karma. So pay attention to that today. And I love one of the things the Dalai Lama says. He says, if you can't help people, at least don't harm them. So when we see situations that we're uncomfortable with and we can't help it, at least try to recognize how can we not cause more harm. And if we're aware of that, it'll change the situation. So, church bells are ringing, so I'm going to stop there. We'll join palms. For the benefit of this practice, be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Alan J. during his time of rebirth, and to Ricky and Kenny and their family and friends who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering.